Welcome back to my YouTube channel, everybody. Today, my guest is the godfather of West Coast hip hop, DJ Lonzo Williams. And of course, having such a guest, we'll talk today about the origins of West Coast hip hop and specifically of gangster rap and G-Funk. Thanks for your time, Lonzo. Thanks for joining me today.
No problem. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, Lonzo, before we start, I introduce you by saying that you're the godfather of West Coast hip hop, but you're a DJ, you're a producer, you are a club owner, you're a band owner, and you're a rapper yourself. So, would you like to say something to my viewers about who you are, background, whatever you feel is relevant?
That's why I'm titled the Godfather of West Coast Hip Hop, because I have so many titles in my history when it comes to West Coast hip hop. I was a distributor. I am, like you said, a publisher of music, writer, producer. I do it all. I've done it all, and I've helped other people do it as well. When you start talking about who I've assisted, Eazy-E, Dr. Dre, Ice Cube, Afro Man, Michel'le, Compton's Most Wanted, DJ Quick. When it comes to Compton and the origins of Compton music or West Coast hip hop, it all starts with me.
Well, let's get into it because you guys started with your club. But I would like first off to start with the social context because as we know, hip hop was born in New York, in uptown New York. But then for some reason, also because LA is a very big city, you guys started doing some hip hop in Compton as well. What was the social context when you started, if we compare, for instance, the Bronx and Compton?
Basically, man, we were out having a good time. We didn't have any really social redeeming factors to our music. It was all about having a good time. The area was there were gangs, but the gangs had not become prevalent. They weren't a major factor. In fact, I describe it as we had about a 10% gang factor with a 90% civilian factor, which means they were non-gangbangers. Everybody was out having a good time. The vibe of the streets was pretty much mellow, man. We had a good time. All we did as a DJ, all I did was party for a living. That's all I did. I gave parties, I gave dances. I started doing concerts later on, and it just became when at some point in time when the drug era came into existence, it made it difficult for us to continue doing our dances because everything was it became a gang scene. It became a crime scene to a certain degree. And we stopped doing what we're doing, and everybody gravitated towards the gang life. And now you have a situation where you have 90% gangsters and 10% civilians. Everything flipped.
That's bad. And in that social context of like having fun and having parties, you started your club called Eve After Dark. Would you like to tell us something about its origins? What happened when, because everything started from there, right?
Everything started from Eve After Dark. Actually, truthfully, it actually started a little bit before Eve After Dark. We were already doing dances at various venues. I was the first one from my era, my dance promoter era, to actually acquire a building that we were able to have it every week, every Friday and Saturday. We had our venue. I was 22 years old. My dad's friend had a venue, had a banquet hall above his nightclub. And he let me rent it out every Friday and Saturday. And that became our staple, gave me the funding to fund Crew Cut Records, start World Class Wrecking Crew, bring Curtis Blow into LA. And everything was good for about, even though that was a gang factor, gangs actually helped me in the beginning because I have relationships with some gangsters who protected the Eve After Dark and made sure nobody messed with us, because they respected what we did. So if some rival gang members came, it was always the conversation in the parking lot. Hey, man, this is something from one of our boys run this. We don't want no problems. Don't bring none, won't be none. And that was pretty much the attitude for years. And then some of those guys moved on, got locked up, whatever the case may be, and things started happening.
And in that context, when you say things started happening, you also started your band called World Class Wrecking Crew, as you just mentioned. But you guys were not playing hip hop. You guys were playing electro funk. How did it go? Because actually, you started doing your own thing. It was not the New York. You were not bringing to the West Coast things that they were doing in New York. It was brand new.
Actually, we started off doing. We tried to do some East Coast stuff. One of my first records was called Slice. DJ Clientele and DJ Yella did it. You can probably hear it on YouTube now. And it didn't go well for us. But we also realized that the best records that were being played in Eve After Dark were from Soul Sonic Force, Africa Bambaataa, things of that nature. And Kraftwerk was a big hit in Eve After Dark. Buffalo Girls by Malcolm McLaren. All these songs were doing very well. So we decided to adapt that style of the up-tempo music, and it worked for us.
And also, if I remember well, but correct me if I'm wrong, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five also did something similar after The Message, because they're very well known for their street-based songs such as The Message, but all their second and third albums are more into the electro funk than in hip hop.
We considered ourselves a combination of Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. It was four of us, and Africa Bambaataa. And then we threw in another element that nobody else had, which we got from LL Cool J, and that was to do slow songs, because at Eve After Dark, we didn't, it just was not a high energy club all night. We also had slow songs that we played from Prince and other artists. And we knew that that was another element that would add to the party, because our motto was we were dance and romance artists. Okay. Our music was funky. It was up tempo, but when it came time to meet a girl, you can't do that doing the WAP. You have to slow down a little bit. And that's what the thing that made us famous for, actually.
I missed something. Did you do that before LL Cool J or after?
We did it after. We actually heard I Need Love coming back from a gig in Oakland. I told the fellas, we need to do a slow song. How are we gonna do a slow song? That's all we're gonna do is we're gonna come up with one. But because I'm a little older, I was familiar with a group called the Floaters. They had a song called Float On, and they had four guys that would rap. I mean, that would do these little rap singing situations. They didn't have a girl though. So I brought a girl in, Mona Lisa, and that's how you got the song Lovers, which later became we redid the same format and created Turn Off the Lights.
And if I remember well, LL Cool J's song was on his second album, Bigger and Effer.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so that was 87, I think.
Yeah.
So we reached the end of the 80s with our story here. And then West Coast hip hop moved to gangsta rap. How did it start? Because I think that here the difference is striking, because you're moving from something that is supposed to be fun to something else that is not supposed to be fun, but it's very hard hitting and very dark and also violent. And what happened, and how come that your associates, such as Dr. Dre and Yella, embraced it?
You know, that's something that I've asked Yella. I haven't talked to Dre about it very much, but it was a situation where the streets of LA and Compton have started to change. Although gangsters still love up-tempo music, it didn't have the same dark, menacing vibe that gangsters actually gravitated towards. It was something when Easy did Boys in the Hood. Nobody ever talked about low riding and things of that nature. It was a whole new genre. It was a whole new vibe. And if you remember NWA correctly, go back to their first album, they had two songs. One was called Something to Dance To, and the other was Panic Zone. If you hear those two songs, they were a lot like, it was produced by Arabian Prince, who at that time was with NWA, but they also they could have been Wrecking Crew songs. They were on that same up-tempo vibe. And as they were kind of feeling their way through, they realized that the slow gangster vibes were starting to be accepted by the general public. And they just moved toward there. They were never gangsters. They were never gangsters, and they were never really a part of the of the gangster activity I had to experience at Eve After Dark. But nonetheless, they were around that, and they knew stories, they knew the attitude and the vibe, and they just kind of melted into that and became NWA. And again, everything was pretty much done here at my house. But again, because I had been involved in that since high school, I was around gang activity since high school. I didn't want no part of it. I knew what kind of trouble it could bring you.
Yeah, and also let's mention the background behind you that says "Not Without Alonso," NWA, with a different meaning than the one that we are used to as the name of the group. But let me ask the question that everyone is waiting for. What is the connection between these guys and real gangsters? Are they real gangsters? Are they associates or are they faking it? Because, of course, we know that there's some gang violence connected to hip hop music. We saw what happened with Tupac Shakur and the Notorious B.I.G., where they hired gangs to shoot one another. And also, we saw what happened with Jam Master Jay and the drug dealing, and let's leave P. Diddy alone for the moment. But let's go back to NWA. Are they real gangsters? What happened there?
Not really, not really. Like I said, they were around. The gang activity it became so regular. It was easy to mimic. You didn't have to. If you look at the first pictures, look at the first pictures of NWA. They were like gangster. They didn't have a gangster look about them. They were wearing regular clothes. It wasn't until I think it was straight out of Compton. They started wearing the Raider gear and started dressing with the black jeans and the Raider hats and things like that. Initially, that was not the concept, and you have to go back to your origins of NWA. One of the first songs was something. Damn it, Express Yourself, and that they focused on expressing yourself, being open-minded and being real. Go to the movie Straight Outta Compton. When Dre got out of jail, he and Easy was sitting in front of the Compton jailhouse, and they were doing reality raps. Okay, reality raps was the vibe of the time. They were trying to do something that was more like it was almost like The Message, but on a gangster tip. The gangster by the Message by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five was definitely a reality rap, but it was a New York style reality rap. Okay, and they wanted to have. It came up with a different. Dre came up with a different vibe that gave the gangsters of our era something to groove to, and because he was using a new style of production, there was more sampling and more looping and things of that nature. He was grabbing old songs that were already proven to be have a sinister vibe to them, and it just gave the whole thing a much more darker groove, and they just had to adapt to the style, to the look. The look was already there because it was sold at the Compton swap meet. If you wanted to be a gangster back in the day, you had to have some dark clothes, preferably some Raider gear, that black hat, maybe white tennis shoes, and you had to walk a certain way. But for the most part, and I know them all very, very well. And in fact, when I did I got a street renamed after Eazy-E in Compton, and I had to do a background search to make sure he wasn't a criminal. He was not a criminal. He may have sold dope. He never got caught, put it that way. And these are some of the things that people, I say in my book, in fact, that's my book cover behind me there. They knew gang life. Easy and Ren were probably the only ones that were affiliated enough to say that they may be a gang member. Dre and Yella for sure were not gang members. Ice Cube for sure not a gang member. They just knew how to write the lyrics. If you ask him, if you see some of the interviews right now, he'll tell you he never was a gangbanger. Yella never. Dre never. He grew up around gangbangers. He like we all did, but they just knew how to mimic the attitude on record as gangbangers.
Well, let me detour a little bit. Would you say the same words about Suge Knight and Death Row Records?
Now, Suge, allegedly, I don't know Suge personally, but the story I get is Suge was a football player, good kid, and once he formed Death Row Records, he started affiliating himself with gangsters, and he adapted that gangster attitude because he had the money and the backup to do what he did. and he was a good businessman. But he still wanted to hold on to that gangster image, and you see where that got him.
Okay, that makes much sense, and pieces and puts all the pieces of the puzzle in the right place. Uh, so we have gangster rap, even if they were not real gangsters, and then it evolved to G-Funk. So let me phrase it properly. G-Funk usually have a different as the same kind of stories being told, but from a different angle and with a totally different vibe. Because, for instance, if we listen to "Regulated," it is probably the most famous G-Funk song ever. We have stories about gangsters, but from a different angle of someone being jumped by gangsters. But let's not forget that the first G-Funk record ever is actually the second album by NWA. So they are the founders of G-Funk as well. And correct me if I'm wrong or if you don't agree. So where does this shift come from?
Well, I'm gonna correct you. Warren G actually invented G-Funk.
Okay.
Dre and Warren are brothers.
Yeah.
Dre liked the style and adopted it and used it on some of the NWA stuff. But that's a product of Warren G, Jinx, and Warren G, Jinx, and Nate Dogg. But like I said, Dre was able to get it exposed first. But just for the record, that's all. Go. Now, what was the question again? I'm sorry.
No, I mean, how do we switch from the hard-hitting gangster rap to the soft-hitting G-Funk? What was the story in between?
So the G-Funk was more about the vibe of the artist. If you listen to Regulator, Nate Dogg was minding his own. I mean, Warren G was minding his own business, and somebody came at him. Nate Dogg came to his rescue. They were out looking for girls. Okay, they were out looking for girls, and okay, and I got to think of the song, and they ended up going to the motel with the girls after Nate Dogg shot the guys. Okay, but again, they were not the aggressor. See, there was once upon a time when you could be cool and not be gang. You could be gang associate. Gang. See what I want to say. You could be gang associated, but not in a gang, and that's where a lot of people. You got pretty much it was guilt by association because you live in a certain neighborhood. You might not be an active gang member, but because you live in a certain neighborhood, people would assume that you were from that gang. And if you carried yourself in a certain kind of way, you might get a pass. You might get away with being in a certain neighborhood or a certain spot and not get really jammed up because you really didn't carry yourself. That was more the G-Funk vibe. The G-Funk vibe was the guys that knew the gangsters, they just wasn't really gangsters. But if they had to, they would protect themselves just like anybody else.
Well, let's go back to the beginning of NWA. When you were working with Dr. Dre, did you have the impression that that guy would have became one of the most important producers ever?
Hell no.
Okay.
If you knew Dre back then like I did, it was nowhere in the world you could ever predict something like this. I mean, Dre was always a talented guy. That's no doubt about it. But he was always very playful, not very responsible. I'd have to tell Dre sometimes if we had a plane to leave at 3:00, I would tell him 1:00 because he was going to be late no matter what. And things like that. I mean, in the movie, they showed me getting him out of jail. They showed Easy getting him out of jail, but I'd already got him out of jail in real life 2 times before that. So for me, if you ask me about the people who I thought would be successful, Cube has always been a focused guy. Dre was never that dude. He was the one I would have bet on.
Did you like the movie, by the way?
It was good. It was good. I didn't like the way they portrayed my character as some kind of hater because I could not have done what I've done and do what I do if I was a hater. But I understand in writing, you have to have an antagonist at some point in time. And I was the antagonist until I walked out of that room. And then Jerry Heller and Suge came in later on. So once I understood how movies are made and why they're made a certain way, it was okay. But it also helps me to do what I do because I write books about the actual history of West Coast hip hop. Books available on Amazon now with Alonzo. I have two documentaries. One is on Tubi right now about the Eve After Dark, and I have a second documentary that's doing the film festivals right now called NWA Now Without Alonzo. So it's giving me a spinoff of the movie, a subculture of the actual facts that the movie left out or didn't tell.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I also think that all those movies have the same problem. They have to shrink in 2 hours a story that, expands in more than 10 years. So, for
Exactly.
instance, they mostly cut off Arabian Prince. Is nobody in the movie, while, as you have explained, had a big role in developing the music of NWA. So I'm totally with you. And how was working with Ice Cube? Because that guy made a big change. Because other than sticking to music, he also moved to cinema, and also he started around year 2000 making more soft songs, more family-oriented songs. Until we reach with Crazy Bone. And now he's a basketball superstar because he owns the Big Three league. I was working with Ice Cube. Were you expecting back then all that he would have made in the future?
If I had to bet on a youngster at that time, I would have bet on Ice Cube. Ice Cube, he was around me when he was like 15, 16 years old. And he didn't spend a lot of time with me. But if you, I have kids, I got nephews his age. When you were around people for a long time, you start picking up their mannerisms and see how they actually think and what they're good at. He was always a good writer. I call Ice Cube the biggest gangster on West Coast hip hop for the same reasons that you just mentioned. Ice Cube bet on himself and made a move that most people wouldn't make. At the height of NWA, he left. That took a big heart. He left, went to New York, hired the Bomb Squad to help him produce his album, came back and became a hell of an artist on solo, then got into the movies with Boys in the Hood. While he was doing that, he learned the movie game and started producing his own movies, Fridays and Are You There? Are We There Yet? Barbershop. And then once he captured that field, he went into sports. Nobody else has done that. I mean, people have transitioned into movies. They have transitioned into commercials and things of that nature. But most of the ventures that Ice Cube get into, Ice Cube has a vested interest in them. So he has, he's not just an actor in a movie. Yes, he does act, but he owns franchises. He owns the Barbershop franchise. He owns the Friday franchise. He is a major partner in the Big Three, which he created. So when you see a guy like that go take things from zero and has his team and builds a team to keep it going, that's a hell of an achievement. So that's a gangster move in my book.
Well, and he left NWA, but I would say that NWA survived because I don't know if you agree, but to me, 100 Miles and Running, that is the first EP they did after Cube left, is as good as Straight Outta Compton, if not even better.
It was okay.
Uh,
I think it was a good album, but it did not have the same grit when Dre and Cube when Cube left. It was okay. It was all right, but it was like one or two ingredients that if you used to a person cooking a certain way and the same cook makes the same cake or whatever we're talking about, and they don't use a certain ingredients or a different amount, it still tastes good, but it's not as good as that person's over there. And that's all. It's just a matter of taste. That's what I think that's what it is. It's just a matter of taste.
yeah, maybe. But why did they disband so early after their second G-Funk album that we talked about?
It was always about money. It was always a money issue. It was always a money issue. That's why Cube left. That's why Arabian Prince left. Everybody, Arabian Prince left. Cube, according to Arabian Prince, Cube left 2 weeks after he did. Arabian Prince was a independent artist and a producer for Bobby Jimmy and the Critters. He had his own records out. He understood the music game a lot better than anybody else. And he left. Sued Rufus, got his money, and bought him a beautiful car. Came back, saw Ice Cube one day, and Ice Cube, what did you do? I sued, got my money. And that's when Cube left. So when you I lost my train of thought. Damn it. I'm sorry. What was the question again?
Why they disbanded so early?
They originally, here is something most people don't realize. I talk about this in my book. They originally was supposed to be a partnership. Dre, Yella, Cube, and Easy was supposed to form Ruthless Records. Dre did the Easy paid for everything. Dre did the music. Him and Yella did the music. Ice Cube wrote the lyrics. They were also supposed to be partners in Ruthless Records. When Jerry Heller came in, it became a corporation with Easy at the helm, and everybody else became employees. And that was okay in the beginning. Once they realized that was, first of all, not the way it originally started off, and they weren't being properly compensated for their contribution, it was a lot of grumbling. And everybody wanted to leave. And like I said, Cube left. Shortly after that, Dre left. And it just, it was all about money and control.
That's all. Who do you think of them had the best solo career? Of course, you're going to say Ice Cube.
Well, Dre had a great career. Dre's having a great career. I mean, this guy is multi-billionaire. I don't think he is as diverse as Cube is. That's one thing I can say. He made a lot of money with the Apple thing, and I'm quite sure he has other investments. Cube has created more, to me, had created more endeavors with the basketball, the movies, and things like that. And Dre don't do that kind of stuff. He may have some other conventional investments, but a Cube situation is a lot more in line with what he already does.
And who are the best West Coast rappers in your opinion, other than them, and of course, other than Tupac?
After last night, I gotta give a shout out to Kendrick for sure. I've always been a Kendrick fan. He may not be one of the most best rappers per se in the eyes of a lot of people, but when it comes to his overall vibe and his music, I got to put DJ Quick in the top 5, man. He's one of the best in my book. I love his storytelling of it. He tells a great story. He has a great music. He has a great flow. His music is danceable. He's a musician, so he has a different vibe. And I don't know if you want to call him a G-Funk or not. I can't call him he does some gangster stuff, but he's more of a G-Funk artist. He has a different kind of flow, a different kind of style. Got to go with Quick in that. And I always was a big fan of Shock G, man, from Digital Underground. I know that sounds crazy. He's never in the loop, okay? But for me, and I have to always make this announcement. I am a DJ to my heart. I still play records. I still play today. I do gigs right to this day. I had a gig 2 weeks ago. I got one coming up. I look for music that I can use that I can play in my DJ set. So I don't get into a lot of the lyrical gymnastics that some of the artists do, because it's not really danceable. When a guy brings me a song that people like and people can dance to, or I can make them feel good from my platform, those are the ones that I kind of lean toward. And a lot of times they're not the people that most people would think and would think of.
You haven't mentioned Cypress Hill among the best.
I like Cypress Hill. I love Jump. Yes, Jump Around. Oh my God, yes. Cypress Hill definitely was one of my favorites.
Yeah,
again, I have a unique playlist when it comes to that.
They have a different angle because they sing in Spanish sometimes, so it's probably a different story. Quite unique. Their sound is probably more similar to Mexican rappers.
I would throw, if I couldn't leave out Mellow Man Ace or Kid Frost, because both of them do what they do very well.
I'm totally with you.
Again, they would not be in most people's top 10, but when you're trying to when you have a certain format you're trying to achieve, those are go-to guys.
Well, you had a big influence on Western hip hop. Do you think you get the credit you deserve?
Hell no. Hell
Okay.
no. I was having this conversation the other day, just the other day. Somebody asked me the same question, and I had to explain to him. I said, under in New York, Kool Herc is credited with creating hip hop or starting hip hop at 1520 Sedgwick when he gave a party. I've given hundreds of parties since 1970, well, since 1977. I've had multiple record labels. I've had hit records. I've been responsible for the biggest names in West Coast hip hop. And I think, maybe I could be wrong, because the names that I have discovered are so huge. They're so huge that it's like a tree. I describe it as a tree with a canopy that is so big, the roots don't get no water. The roots don't get no sun, I should say. And that's where I think I sit sometimes. The canopy of people that I've been a part of their careers and helped them do whatever they were doing. It becomes so powerful and so big. And if they don't mention my name, people know of the connection, but they don't know all the things that I did. And here's the most interesting part. Here's the most interesting part. Even the people that I have worked with don't know my history. I met Dre. You got to understand this. And I tell this all the time. I am 8 years older than Dre. I'm 12 years older than Ice Cube. When I opened Eve After Dark, I was 22 years old. That means Dre might have been 14. Okay. When I let Dre into Eve After Dark, he might have been 16. I'd had the Eve 2 years before I met Dre. Although we grew up on the same street, but I didn't play with him because I'm 8 years older than he is. Cube is, I'm 22 and I'm 12 years older than Cube. We're doing the math now. When I opened the Eve at 22 in 1979, Ice Cube was in the fifth grade. He was in the fifth grade, 10 years old. He had no idea I existed. So as even before I opened the Eve After Dark, from 1976 to 1979, I was the most popular DJ in South Central. I had no competition. I was doing gigs every day. I do 3-4 gigs a weekend. I did this every weekend leading up to the Eve After Dark. So these guys never participated in my history. They don't really know they don't really know my history. They know my history starting at Eve After Dark. So they can't speak on my version of 520 Sedgwick because they don't know it. They think the Eve After Dark is my beginning, and it wasn't. So we have some communication disconnects that only I can tell. There's only 3 people left, only 2 people left that were part of my history. That's me and Unknown DJ. He don't do interviews. Roger Clayton from Uncle Jam's Army was around he and I worked together in the 70s doing a lot of the same stuff, and he passed in 2010. So if I don't tell my story and people who think they know don't support the story, it won't get told. So yes, no, I don't get the recognition that I deserve, but I'm working on it anyway.
Okay, so I do encourage everybody to read your book, which I've just finished reading for the second time. I'll leave the link to the to buy it on Amazon in the description to this video so that yes, people can read and learn and understand what you did for hip hop. Because that's definitely something you deserve. Well, Lonzo, many thanks for your time. I think that you told us the story, a story that few people know about this very specific and very interesting music genre started and evolved. So I think that this video will be very interesting for anybody who's interested who's going to watch it.
Thank you. Also, you can see one of my documentaries, Eve After Dark, on Tubi and Amazon Prime.
Okay. We don't get Tubi in Europe, but guys, get a VPN and you can see Tubi from Europe as well. That's what I did. And I see Tubi because there are a lot of hip hop documentaries. Go ahead.
It's also on YouTube too.
Ah, okay. So that's the easiest thing to do. Everyone can watch YouTube from everywhere.
Yeah,
So
it's on-
guys, go get these documentaries and Alonso's book, and you'll find out about the origins of West Coast hip hop and what Alonso's role was.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks everybody else for watching this video, and see you all in my next episode. Bye
All
bye.
right. Love. Thank you.